Calvin Castine on the streets of Church Street, Champlain. It's the 19th day of December 2011, and we're looking at a view that has been here for all of my years and for many years before me, and very shortly will not be here. It is a building that I grew up knowing as the Meat Locker, across from St. Mary's Church in downtown Champlain. Next door, the White House, belongs to Donald and Georgiana Castine. The church building, former church building, to the right of the Meat Locker, was for a long time the Methodist Church, and for a brief time in the mid-70s was home for the Champlain Youth Center, and is now apartments. The former Meat Locker building, we'll get into the history a little bit more. I just wanted to capture this particular angle because it's going to disappear very shortly, and it looks like the workers are arriving here. It's shortly after 8 a.m. on this Monday, the 19th day of December 2011. This is the north view of the building at the moment. I believe it was on Thanksgiving Day, but we're going to say on or around Thanksgiving Day. A loud crash was heard, and this was the result. When folks came outside, they found that a large portion of the north side of the building had collapsed. The village has been working with the owner of the building, a gentleman from Canada. He is apparently financially unable to do the necessary steps to tear the building down. The experts came and looked at this building and said that it cannot be salvaged. The repairs that would have to go into salvaging it wouldn't be economically feasible. So tearing it down is the only reality right now. And with these workers arriving on this Monday morning, it looks like initial steps in that direction will be taken. I believe the village officials are meeting sometime today to finalize the go-ahead to remove this building. I'm going to give you a little bit of the history of the former Meat Locker, once known as Canada Hall, and for many years in the late 20th century was known as Champlain Vestments. Here's a picture taken from page 3 of the 2006 publication, St. Mary's Academy, 1906 to 2006, that marked the 100th anniversary. I'm just grabbing the microphone again here as it's laying on the side of me. This is from the St. Mary's Academy, 1906 to 2006 publication, published a little over 5 years ago now. And this shows the prehistory of St. Mary's Academy. This is circa 1900. Narcisse St. Maxims had a Catholic school in this building. It was known as Canada Hall. The Catholics in the area were French Canadians that settled here, and from reading some of the writing at the time, they still refer to themselves as Canadians, as there was a lot of animosity in the area, as the Protestant English speakers and the Catholic French speakers were each trying to establish their roots in and around Champlain and this border town. And as you know, it's right on the border here, so both sides were trying to establish their roots. But in 1900, this picture, roughly 1900, this shows some of the students that were there. We have an earlier picture that we're going to show you right now. This is a rare copy of a drawing of the Noadiah Moore home. It was published on the August 2011 calendar put out by David Patrick, the 2011 Champlain Historic Calendar. And this is the August, part of the August page. Noadiah Moore, of course, very closely associated with Pliny Moore, and the west side of Church Street was owned by Pliny Moore, and he sold a lot to school trustees in 1815, where the school was built. There was a school built in the general area of when he died in 1822, Noadiah Moore inherited the lot to the left of the school and built this house. Noadiah's house burned down in 1873 in an 1873 fire, and an empty lot remained when this picture was drawn back in around the early 1900s. To the right of the school was an empty lot where the Methodists moved their frame church in 1830. 2 years after the drawing was made, this church remained here until 1846, when it was moved across the street, later to become St. Mary's Church in 1860. Those were buildings that were on the west area. And now we're going to show a picture from the early 1900s. The brick buildings that are at this moment in time standing here, it is estimated that they were built around 1875 following the aforementioned fire. The building in the foreground is the meat locker. The building in the background is the Methodist Church, which, as we said, is still, at this point in time, still standing and is utilized for apartments. The meat locker, as those of us who were around here in the 1950s into the early part of the 1960s, was, as we said, the Catholic school before St. Mary's, before the sisters, the Daughters of the Charity of Sacred Heart, arrived from France and established St. Mary's Academy. When the students were no longer there, I would imagine it remained as Canada Hall and may have been used by the parishioners of St. Mary's. As to what happened to it between then and the 1950s, when I became familiar with it as a child growing up in the area, I do not know, and I'm not sure that much has been written, if anything has been written about it. In the 50s, as we said, it was the meat locker. Bob Dumont, D-U-M-O-N-T, was a butcher, and this was a common thing. This was before people had freezers. This was before grocery stores had large frozen food sections. So people would need a place to have their frozen food stored. And of course, a lot of farmers in the area, and the farmer would butcher a cow, and the frozen meat would be stored here. What would happen is the butcher would make the cuts. He would put the meat in your locker. He would have a key, of course, and you would have a key. And when you wanted to come get a roast or a bunch of hamburger or whatever, you would come here to the meat locker and grab your meat for the next few days or for the week or whatever. So this is what a meat locker was all about. And I know it was still here in the when I was in 7th and 8th grade, which would put it to about 1960 or so. So my guess is it went out in the early 1960s. I probably sat fairly idle for many years. In 1975, I became familiar with this again, this building. It was at that point in time owned by a man from Rouse's Point, Dave Champlain, who had a realty company. He was a lawyer. It was his main occupation, was a lawyer. But he also had a realty company known as Border Realty. And in 1975, I became associated as a sales agent for Dave Champlain for Border Realty. I was also establishing myself as the Woodman of the World field representative in the area. That was my main income at the time. And also doing a little bit of work writing for the North Countryman. I wrote for the North Countryman from 75 and 76. But Dave Champlain, the back part of the building was used at that time for sewing by Champlain Investments. And he wanted to have a presence here, so for a very short time, around 75 and early 76, I had an office in the front of that building for Woodman of the World, and also if there was a phone in there if we needed something for Border Realty. So he just kind of established me there, gave me a free office because he wanted to have a presence here in Champlain with a Border Realty office. So I was occupying this building for roughly a year or so. Later on, Champlain Investments was bought by some other folks who came and really built the business up. There was a nice story that Bob Venn and I did in the 1990s on Champlain Investments. I invite you to go to our website and watch that video. It's there online at www.hometowncablenetwork.com and also at plattsburgh.com. You can go to either one of those websites and view that video, and it shows what was happening in this building. And the vestments they were making were priest vestments, and they were being sold all around the North America. And they're very nice vestments that the priests wear. Many of them were made right here in Champlain. Champlain Investments just kind of disappeared. Not sure what caused their demise or if they just relocated, but they're no longer here. And this building has apparently been sold since then, and unfortunately the maintenance that needs to be done in these old buildings, again, is built roughly in 1875, so we're talking 136 years ago. And unfortunately the maintenance that needs to be done on these apparently wasn't done, and now there's structural damage that is beyond repair. So this building, which has sat here for the lifetime of everybody in and around Champlain who is still living and breathing, well beyond their lifetimes, is going to be very shortly, as we're recording this, a part of history. It will no longer be here, a very familiar sight to all of us, particularly those of us attending St. Mary's Church. When you come out, there it is. It's right across the street. The temperature at the moment is roughly 25 degrees with a strong southern wind, and that's just going to add to their woes here as they try to demolish this. The cast iron house is very, very close to the building. There's a garage even closer to it. This former church, is also relatively close, and it is our hope that we will be here for the early part of the destruction of this building, but we may not be able to fit that into our timeline. As I mentioned, it's 25 degrees with a very strong and cold wind coming from the south. We are on the northern part of the building. When we shut the camera off, we chatted briefly with one of the men here, the man who seemed to be in charge. And their mission is to salvage the slate on the roof. It's very possible that this is the original slate, and it would go back to the 1875 era. And it has great value, particularly many buildings that need to retain their historical perspective when they are being repaired need actual slate. And nothing could be finer than slate from the 1870s. So that is what their mission is. They're out of, I believe he said, Connecticut. And I mentioned the concern with safety. He said we are fully harnessed, and he assured me that they knew what they were doing. So we're going to, there's a gentleman I talked with. We're going to hopefully get a little bit of them going up on the roof. And looks like they would probably be putting the slate on that box there, and how they'll get it up and down, I'm guessing at this point. We'll take just a moment to take a look at the front of this building. As you can see, it was done with style. It wasn't just putting the bricks up there. They tried to do it with some flair. This building, before it was taken over in the late 1800s by the Catholic school, it was used as the public school. And in information contained in a writing by Ponchel St. Maxims, the school superintendent for St. Mary's, he explained the history from, of course, from the French Canadian Catholic view. And it was built by the community of Champlain for a school, and it just didn't become feasible as a public school. And much to, according to St. Maximin, much to the dismay of the English speakers, the English Protestants, it was bought by the Catholics and turned into their school. And I think up to 130 students, according to what David Patrick has written, were in here at a particular time. A large French-Canadian population. And Father Chagnot, who was the driving force behind the building of the stone church we see here, and who was buried, actually has a monument on the side and back of the Samuel de Champlain monument. There's a monument, mausoleum type of thing for Father Chagnot. He was the one instrumental, very much a driving force for his French-Canadian Catholic parishioners, and according to what David Patrick has written, he personally spent the $1,100 to purchase this building after it had been used by and built for the purpose of the public schools here in Champlain. I'd like you to memorize this view right here from where we're sitting at the moment. And now, the same view before present St. Mary's Church was built. The building that is now the rectory is there to the right. The building that is the Donagiro home is to the left. And the lot where the present church is here. And this church here was, I believe, a former Methodist church, and was purchased and became the first Catholic church. This picture is taken again from, actually it's the cover for the 2011 Champlain Historic Calendar by David Patrick. And David says, in 1884, a stone church was built on a second lot to the left of the framed church. So the framed church is probably roughly where the Champlain monument is, and or Father Chanel's body lies. In 1844, a stone church was built on the second lot to the left of the framed church and was completed and dedicated in 1885. It is thought that the framed church was used for worship during the construction and was removed afterwards. So that is the history of that particular area. And we're grateful to David Patrick for information in his 2011 calendar. We're also grateful to Celine Paquette, who translated the St. Maxine's letter back in 2006 for the St. Mary's 2006 publication. While we've been busy looking at those pictures, a man has made it up onto the roof. And this morning, my daughter had an early appointment, so she dropped off her children for me to bring to daycare and to school. And my grandson Abram asked me, "Do you have a hard job, Papa?" I said, "Nope. I don't work hard. I work long hours, but not hard." Now this, to me, is a hard job. It's 25 degrees with strong winds. You're on a roof, and beneath you is this kind of situation. I wouldn't want to be up there in mild weather, let alone frigid temperatures and strong wind. I am seated in my car, just so you know that I am doing to meld with nature right now. Alright, turn the ladder over to the front of where he's standing now. More so. As you can see, there's a rope that is holding him so that he cannot fall all to the ground. And now another gentleman is making his way out through that skylight. I can't imagine stepping foot in that building, let alone going to the roof. It looks like a fellow may have pulled off the first slate. I don't imagine the slate has much value if it's broken, so have to be very careful how they, whoops, or maybe not. Or maybe that one was damaged, so he didn't set it aside. I'm not going to speculate too much. I'm just going to watch and just see what happens. Even though he's fully harnessed, he is very cautious. The other gentleman has made his way down. And now he's going up again, and we just heard a little noise. That pylon and little pylon barrel there just got blown over in the wind. They are working in some gusty conditions. When we talked to the gentleman who told us that they were going to try to salvage the slate on the roof, he speculated that also that when the people tear this down, they will probably be looking to salvage as much of the brick as possible also. Just so you get an idea what this guy is doing here, I'll back up. Strong, gusty winds. Once in a while my car moves in the wind. Like some tin flashing that was at the peak of the roof. There's the damaged slates. It is 9:20 a.m. on this December 19th, 2011. We're watching the slate salvaging on the roof of the former Champlain meat locker, Champlain vestments site for many years, and known for a long time as Canada Hall. We're going to come back in about an hour and a half to 2 hours and check on their progress. You're watching viewer-supported hometown cable. It is now 11:17. The temperature is risen to 30 degrees, still sub-freezing, and the wind is still very brisk and unforgiving. And we're looking at the south side of the building. Well, actually, this is the east side and south side of the roof, and they have not started on this side yet. Now moving back to the area where we were about 2 hours ago, I can see that there has been much progress. This fellow is loading the roofing tiles and the ones that are damaged, they just toss. And looks like they have stored some up there. I had some stuff to do outside briefly when I was home, and that was shortly after I left here, and just walking from one place to another facing the wind, it was almost like eating ice cream. I get a brain freeze. It's reminiscent to me of the, oops, that one there I don't think he meant to drop, of the work done by the tree doctor, Thorne Reinhardt, when he took down the 75-foot poplar in my yard. So I would say this side here is pretty much peeled of the slates. And it's just a matter of loading them in that box and hauling them down the ladder. And next time I come, looks like they're going at a good clip now. Oops, don't lose them. Well, the ones that are broke, that's gone. You can sell the corner, that one is broke. I don't think they get paid by the number of unbroken ones they get. Maybe they do. That strap would excuse me, prevent them from hitting the ground when they fell, but they would be sliding into the side of the building. If they slid off the roof, the strap would catch them, and then momentum would carry them into the side of the building. So that strap is a safety precaution, but it's certainly not anything that is taking them completely out of danger. We'll be back probably later this afternoon to see what the progress might be, and our hope is that when the building is going to be torn down, that we will be available. We have things we have to recover this week before Christmas, school programs that are going on we have to cover, but our hope is that we'll be able to be here when the brick portion of the building is taken down, or at least the beginning of it. We've now progressed to about 4:15 in the afternoon of Monday, December 19th, 2011, and looks like all the slate is off the roof on both sides. We are now on the south side, And looks like the work crew is picking up and heading home, so they put in a full day. It's been sprinkling for the last half hour or so, the last half hour of the day has been a little bit wet. The temperature on my way down here was about between 35 and 38 degrees. So again, we hope to be back here when the actual building goes down. This building, once again, as we said at the start, has been here since 1875. It's 136 years. It's been here as a landmark in the village of Champlain, and it's about to come to an end. Now the morning of December 22nd, winter started earlier today. About 38 degrees as we're taping this. I'm standing on the grounds of St. Mary's Academy in Champlain, looking toward the meat locker, and this is a view that is going to be there for probably another 24 hours or so. On Friday morning they're supposed to start the demolition. And you might say, has this view been here since 1875? No, it hasn't. It's been here since about 1960 or so, when these hills that were here were removed and the athletic field was put in under the direction of Father Bayet at St. Mary's. The bricks used for the construction of the old meat locker, the Canada Hall, and etc., quite possibly came from the hills that were here prior to 1960. In writings by Woody McClellan, Champlain's probably greatest historian, to which we owe many thanks for passing along a lot of knowledge. There were brickyards in this area, and someone who played in these hills that were here as an elementary student, I could tell you there was a lot of clay, and you would come in after playing up here and your shoes would be filled with clay. So it's very possible that the bricks used for that construction of that building came out of the hills that were here at one time. I'm going to take a closer look in just a moment at the building and hopefully be here tomorrow morning. This is the view at 10:40. Bright sunny day today on December 22nd. They've moved a pile of sand up here and put the backhoe up there. That's how they're hoping to take it down. The newspaper has been very diligent about putting the starting time in the paper. It was supposed to be 7 this morning, and they changed it to 7 Friday, so hopefully it won't be an overflow crowd here trying to get a view of this building coming down. There's a little more distance on the north side compared to the buildings next to it than there is on the south side, and we showed this here when we were here a few days ago, the proximity of the cast iron house here to the site. And we've got a gentleman standing next to us. What's your name, young fella?
Chad Poyer.
Chad Poyer. And it's not Chad's Repair, is it?
Nope, it's Rainey's Repair.
Rainey's Repair.
Yeah.
Is that you ringing?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Alright, he's going to answer his phone. Now I believe Randy Bedard is on the other side.
Yep, Randy and I are going to tackle this project here.
Okay, and you're gonna have the fun of trying it on this side.
Yep, I got the tight side. Randy's got the open side.
Okay, and I was talking with Norman Jolliker yesterday. He said his son would be, I think, working for Randy.
Yep, Bill's going to be in the other excavator on the north side.
And who's gonna be in there?
Myself.
You're gonna be in there yourself.
Yep, I'll be in my excavator on this side, and hopefully it goes good. We're just building up our sand now, and the weather looks pretty good, so if everything goes right, maybe we'll get it on the ground today.
Are you going to start today?
If we can.
Okay. Unfortunately, I've got a 1 o'clock recording in Plattsburgh that I've got to be at.
Well, as long as if everything goes correctly.
Uh-huh.
You know, they advertised it for tomorrow on the news and things, but
Well, I'm not sure why they're doing that.
yeah, so
you don't need 150 people standing around.
I definitely don't think we'll be doing it tomorrow for sure. So
Okay.
not today, probably Monday.
Okay. So you're not going to go with the spectators.
No, that makes it too difficult. You know, it's just it's hard enough to do it with our own crew, and the more people you get around, just makes it a little harder.
Now, what's the plan here, Chad? I talked to some people who were salvaging the tiles off the roof there, the slate, and they thought maybe some of the brick could be salvaged. But is it anything could be salvaged out of this, or is it just going to
Well,
it down?
it's a little bit hard because we had to acquire a DEC permit for the rubble, and so it has to be tracked where it's being used, just for their records. I'm not sure exactly why, but on our permit is very specific where it needs to go.
Well, those guys at DEC have to have a job too,
Yes,
you know.
they do,
so
that's for sure.
They make you jump through hoops, and they
Yeah.
get paid.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But there will be a lot of bricks that are salvageable.
So are you going to just?
Rent is
Obviously, the roof can't come tumbling all down at once. How are you going to approach this?
No, I think on the north side we're going to start there. I'm going to brace this side the best we can, and just go from north to south, and just kind of pull it down one at a time. Brick structure like this is actually pretty sound. You know, it's locked together very well, so it's not like it's all going to just fall at one time.
At least that's the
plan.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best laid plans of mice and men, you know.
Well, that's it. That's it. So we're going to play it by ear, go slow, and take it down one piece at a time if we have to.
And this is your great uncle's garage back here. You
Yep.
have to,
Yep.
he'll give you a heck if you.
Oh yeah, we've already had a long talk, so I reassured him if we bust it, we'll fix it. Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else you should tell us right now, Chad, while we're looking at this?
Well, the only thing we're going to look to save is the stars on the building.
I imagine there's big rods running through them. Or
Yep. That's what holds from end to end, and man, there's been a lot of interest for those stars.
Really?
Oh yeah. So if we can, we're going to try to save them.
And sell them to the highest bidder.
Yep, they're for auction. Yeah.
Okay, we've been chatting with Chad Purrier, and hopefully, when this happens, we'll be able to have a camera here and get a shot of it coming down. Been around since 1875, and it's at least double my lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice old building, boy. It's too bad it's got to go, but lack of maintenance.
Yep. I mean, the building next to it was probably built just about the same time, and
Yep.
people taking care of it. And
Nice condition.
yeah, and speaking of maintenance, I should compliment you on camera here for that great job you did restoring the American house.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
You know, it's really an asset to the downtown community right now.
Yep, it's working well for me. It's working well for the village, I think. Well, there, we got some more sand coming in.
There we go, even as we speak. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you, Calvin.
Well, it's Randy Bedard Excavating and Chad Purrier from Rainey's Repair that'll be handling this. Okay, we've moved to the 23rd. It's about 11:35. Fortunately for me, Jack Favreau was racing here when the building went down, quite unexpectedly, and we'll be showing you that footage. Although Jack doesn't get the actual collapse, but we do have the actual collapse thanks to Mr. Kevin Triller, who was also set up and recording. And right now we have the mayor of the village of Champlain, who probably had better days than yesterday.
Oh yeah, I had better days than yesterday, Calvin. It was reminiscent of events in 2001 when you saw that building come down, and it really was. I feel bad for the cast irons. I feel bad for the construction crew here. They just touched the corner of that building up there, and it, just like dominoes falling, it just started in the back corner and just went right around, and it was just dust and everything else around here for a long time, and I really feel bad. This was a beautiful building, and it's probably for the best, though. There were some people up there taking slate off earlier this week on Monday, and the guy came down off the roof and he said, you know, this building's moving. And I said, well, it's probably best that you not go up there any longer. And they took all the slate that was on there, and it's good that all of this area here was covered. There was about 6 foot of sand. There was some concrete barriers here. That excavator was on top, and when that building collapsed, it all kind of swept this way towards the cast iron's home here, and that I think we averted more damage with that excavator, because that took a lot of the bricks and stuff from when it kicked out. When that wall kicked out, it hit that rather than the cast iron's house.
Yeah, we're talking with Greg Martin, the mayor here, and telling us about yesterday. They were trying to get this done as quickly as possible, and I know you were trying to keep the media alert as to when it was happening, but for some reason the press felt obliged to keep putting the demolition time and date in the paper, and I think that was counterproductive. That they didn't want a crowd around here.
No, that was my mistake, Calvin. The original thought was they were going to take this down this morning.
Yeah,
they wanted a couple days.
But what I'm saying is that the construction crew, or deconstruction crew in this case, wasn't really looking forward to having an audience. They wanted to get it done without people milling around, and because of the very thing that just happened yesterday.
It drew quite a crowd here.
But it could have been even bigger if it took place and unannounced.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, the intention was not to demolish this building yesterday. I mean, they just tapped a corner of it, and it was just disaster waiting to happen, unfortunately.
Yes, and it's snowing a little bit here. We're not supposed to get much of an accumulation, but a heavy snowfall would have taken it down.
I think so.
I was here recording when those fellows were up there Monday, and it's very lucky that it didn't, ropes wouldn't have helped them a darn bit if that building came down.
That would have been catastrophic at that point.
I haven't seen Kevin Triller's footage yet. I'm looking forward to seeing that. But I did see Jack Favreau's. He went inside the cast iron home and showed the bricks and everything else that went flying through. It's just lucky that nobody was looking out the window at that particular time, because there's some young children that live there, and fortunately they weren't in the building, and one of Karen's daughters was there looking out. She went to get a cup of coffee, and that's when everything kind of broke loose here. So we were fortunate that nobody got hurt. That's very, very fortunate. And it's sad, because if that building had been properly maintained, it's safe to say that maybe it'd be standing like the building next to it. It's certainly built in the same time period probably by the same people, so it couldn't have been built much differently.
No, it was built about the same time. But one of the things that we've all noticed here, when the bricks fell, all of those bricks were clean. There was no mortar at all on those bricks. That tells me that everything just is powdered, disintegrated, and as you were just saying, if it was properly maintained, there was no heat, no water, no nothing in that building for a number of years. So that led to, or helped lead to the destruction of this building. It was a beautiful building. Yes,
it was. It was certainly a part of the landscape here on Church Street. I had an office there briefly in 75, 76 when Dave Champlain owned it, the Board of Realty. Of course, Champlain Investments was in there probably for 15 years or longer. They were there for a long time. I grew up with what I call a meat locker, which other people call a frozen food locker, with a butcher there, and you would store your meat in there, and that's when you didn't have freezers at home, and there wasn't a big freezer section at the grocery store. And
you brought your animals down, and were prepped here. They were stored here, and whenever you wanted to get some fresh.
You got your key. The butcher had a key, and you went in there and got your meat. And it's kind of like a safety deposit box in the bank, but only a lot bigger.
Well, it worked.
And it was a common thing. It wasn't just only here in Champlain. This is common throughout the country, but it's something that people growing up now have no clue that it ever existed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know Rainey's Repair was really jumping all over, and
they were very
trying
good.
to
They
make
were
good over here on this side.
Yes. They were very good, nice, good response, but Rainey's Repair was here. They pulled in all their crews. They were here last night until about 9 o'clock. They took the siding off the side of the building. They boarded up the windows. They put a new electrical service in. It was a fantastic effort on their part. Today, Samples Lumber was here, measured for windows. The windows will be in because of the holidays, probably the first week in January, but they're really attempting to make this right, and it's only fair. I feel bad for them.
Yeah, but I mean, this close. I mean, these lots. This building is very close to the edge of its property line. There's obviously no parking. There's a little bit, maybe 3-4 cars in the front.
Yes.
There's a facility that was built in the 1800s, and they weren't worried about people parking at the time. Somebody would pull up with their horse and
horse and buggy and tie it up and go do their business.
Yeah, and
I feel kind of bad for Mr. Landry over here in his apartment building. They haven't been able to park in their parking lot since Thanksgiving.
Yeah, well, that'll change shortly.
Yep.
And just in time for the winter.
They're doing a good job here cleaning it up. So
Okay. Anything else, Greg?
No, I'm just sorry that this happened. I feel bad for Mr. and Mrs. Castine, and obviously the loss of this building.
Yeah. Well, the building had to be torn down. It was at that stage, and
well, it was a dangerous situation. I'm surprised it hadn't fallen before.
Yeah, so
I guess
it was proven.
A stroke of luck was when the demolition crews were here. They at least afforded some fortification against Mr. and Mrs. Castine's home. So, to keep the damage, I know it's bad, but keep it at a minimum. Maybe demolishing 2 houses here if that hadn't happened.
Oh, definitely. They would have, well, maybe not demolish it, but it certainly would have been serious structural damage.
Yeah, at least this part of it here.
Okay. Well, anything else, Greg?
No, thanks, Calvin.
Alrighty. So we're going to wrap up, I think, at this point, Hometown Cable's coverage of this. We're going to go to the Kevin Triller video this time, I hope, and also we'll hope to get Jack Favreau's on at the end of that. As we said, Jack just missed being in there, but he does show some pictures inside the home, and we appreciate Jack's coverage of this for us. We appreciate Kevin Triller making his video available also. So a long-time landmark going back to 1875 is now gone with the wind, or about to be gone with the wind here. It's the remaining rubble is being taken away. So thanks for watching Hometown Cable, and stick around. We got the Triller and Favreau versions coming right up here. Viewer-supported local television TV we think is worth your support.